Today we are going to be making sourdough ciabatta. Now the full recipe is linked in the description box below over on our blog, but it's 1.5 cups of water, half a cup of sourdough starter, 3 cups of flour, and a teaspoon of salt. Now for this one I used 1 cup of freshly milled flour and 2 cups of all-purpose flour. This is really my favorite recipe that I've made in a long time. It's a high hydration dough. I have been experimenting with high hydration sourdough for a little while now, and I wanted to share it with you. Now you can use a mixer for this and knead it, but really to get the interior that you're going to see, or that you saw at the first of the video, the stretching and folding is best. So after I let it sit, the dough, for 30 minutes, I'm going to do stretch and folds. I want to walk you through this. Having a little bit of water in a bowl to dip your fingers in really helps, because this is a stickier, wetter dough. And you're just picking up the edges, pulling it as far as you can without breaking it, and folding it back on itself. Every time that you do this, you'll notice it gets stretchier and smoother and less sticky. It won't stick to your fingers as much. So for this recipe, I did it 4 times. So we mix the dough, we let it sit 30 minutes, and then every 30 minutes for 4 times, we do a set of stretch and folds, which is going around the bowl all the way and stretching up the dough, stretching it onto itself. You can already see how much smoother and how I'm not having to dip my fingers in between every single time. It does the same thing as kneading as far as building the gluten and the structure. It's just a little bit slower. And I noticed that with these high hydration doughs, stretching and folding does make a more airy and bubbly interior. And so that's what I've been doing. Now this is the 4th stretch and fold. The dough is very stretchy and strong. And now I'm just going to leave it in the bowl. I'm going to cover it and let it proof for about 6 hours. After it's proofed for about 6 hours, I like to take a baking sheet, sprinkle it with some flour, and then I'm going to get that dough carefully. I don't want to lose the bubbles that have been created through the fermentation process. So what I'm doing, I'm putting some flour on my hands, flour on the baking sheet that's lined with parchment paper, and carefully go around the bowl and loosen that dough up. You can see bubbles on the surface, and it's something that is important for ciabatta, is to keep all of those wonderful holes in there. Now I want to tell you why this is so exciting for me. We had a restaurant when I was younger that sold these sandwiches, and I was obsessed with them because they were on ciabatta rolls. And I don't know why I never really thought to make them for the blog, but I'm glad that I have now. I've decided these will be a regular in our home. I'm going to keep these on hand because they're easy to make and they are so good for sandwiches. So once you get the dough out carefully, you do have to work with it a little, but don't press too hard. You want to get it into a rectangle shape. And what we're going to do is cut it down the middle and then cut each part, each half. We're going to cut in half and then in half again. That'll give you 8 ciabatta rolls, and it makes the perfect size for a sandwich. And so I use a bench scraper to cut my dough, and as you can see, it's puffy, it's an airy dough. Now keep in mind, when you cut the dough, it is going to be sticky, and that's the nature of a high hydration dough. But once you get used to it and you see the results, you will be wanting to get into the high hydration doughs too. So I'm going to get these cut out so that they can do their second rise for about an hour. Now 30 minutes into that hour, I'm going to get my oven preheated and ready to go, and I'll show you little tricks for making sure that you have these rise perfectly in the oven. So you need steam to get a good rise so that the crust doesn't develop really fast. So what I do is put this big cast iron griddle in the oven. I'll link it down below. I love it. And I'm putting a little tiny cast iron pot under it on the bottom rack. I'm going to preheat the oven to 475 degrees with these two vessels inside. Now once it gets preheated, I am going to add the ciabatta to the cast iron griddle. I'm going to pull it out very carefully. It's piping hot. You can see it steaming. That is exactly what you want for this type of dough. And then I'm going to just carry this over and slide the dough out onto that griddle. It's a really easy transfer. Again, carefully put it back in the oven. And then I'm going to put a bunch of ice cubes in that little cast iron pot that's on the bottom shelf or bottom rack. That's going to create steam. I'm going to quickly close the door so that all that steam will stay in the oven and rise the dough. Now after 15 minutes, I took that little pot out and baked it for another 5 minutes. Look at these. Oh, wow. We went crazy over these. The interior is insane. So bubbly and airy, light. And I made a sandwich out of these with some homemade pasta sauce, cheese, and fresh basil. It was top notch. We are in love. I hope that you enjoyed this video and that you will give these a try and tag me on Facebook or Instagram and let me know that you made them. Again, the recipe's in the description box, or head over to therosehomestead.com and search ciabatta. All right, well, that's all I have for you today. I hope y'all have a great day, and we'll see you on the next video.